Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Cruiser Chat, Tuesday Cruiser Chat with Otram. Same as usual, nothing really planned for this evening, just whatever you guys want to talk about. It was a pretty uneventful week. Last week at the shop, Crash was on vacation, so it was just me. So yeah, I knocked out, I think, 4 FJ62 stainless exhausts while I was home alone last week. But that's about it. And I'm going to take one of those 62 exhausts and the 80 series exhaust I did a couple of weeks ago. I need to take those up to get them digitized because I'm looking to get them mandrel bent to make production of them faster and easier instead of having to weld out all the individual bends. But that's about all that's new as far as news. We started on a 200 series this morning, doing a tough dog suspension with trail tailor, upper control arms, hair up rear locker, and some bud built sliders. So I've been throwing pictures of that up on Instagram as we go along. But yeah, that's about it. We just got a bunch of smaller jobs going on at the shop. But yeah, so whatever you guys want to chat about, whatever questions you've got, I will do my best to try to answer them. And hey, how's it going, Silver? I'm trying to think if there's anything else new and exciting. I don't think there is. It's been very boring around the shop the last couple weeks. Yeah, I went hiking at Harper's Ferry with my wife over the weekend, and that was fun. Found a super awesome vegan restaurant there in Harper's Ferry, and had vegan chicken and waffles with amazing gravy. Yeah. Oh, we're heading down to Asheville, North Carolina, early October. So if you guys have any suggestions for things that I have to see while in Asheville, drop me a line. Planning on mostly just like hiking and hanging out. But if there's anything super cool that's not, can't be missed, let me know. The new lathe is awesome. I use it way more than I thought I would. We've turned a bunch of adapters and fixtures for it, so we can do, small jobs quick and easy. Like we bore the 40 series transfer case output housings, bore them double deep so you can add an extra seal. So I made a fixture to make that easy. We've been turning down lots of 14-bolt hubs to accept ABS tone rings for the Jeep shop that's next door. We turned down, I guess it was a 14-bolt ring gear. They were chopping the housing and chopped it too close and needed the ring gears turned down more to clear. So we turned that down. So yeah, the new lathe is awesome. And hola back, Dad. And how's it going, T25? Yeah, I really, really like the new lathe with the amount of power it's got. I've yet to do anything on it that even comes close to bogging it down. I need to get a mill to go with it. We've got a small horizontal mill, but it just doesn't really have the gusto to do much. So I need to find an actual, real vertical mill. And I picked up, I guess over the winter, a Walker Turner radial drill press. And used that last week. I set up a fixture on it to knock out a bunch of little brackets. And that thing was so nice to use, compared to a more modern drill press. It just way more flexibility and gusto. And how's it going, Steven? And I was going to write you back in a little bit, but you're on here. Looks like I'm not going to Maryland until Thursday. So if you want to swing down for the lookover on your truck tomorrow, I can fit that in. I won't have either of the tall lifts open, but we can do it on the mid-rise. And we should be able to see, just about everything. Yeah, my machining skills are are not great. I'm still at the hobby level of the machining spectrum. But, I can do a good enough job to get basic stuff done, which works great for making, like, seal drivers and, small tools for around the shop. I just like playing with the lathe. The thing is so cool. So Crash will be to the shop around 8 tomorrow. I'm running tomorrow morning, so I probably won't get there till like 9. Actually, let me look and see how long my run's supposed to be tomorrow. Oops, that's not the right thing. Yeah, I'll probably be in right around 9. Because I've got an hour run to do in the morning. I am hoping the Shady 80 will be ready for fall crawl. At the very least, I'm hoping to be able to just drive it there, even if it's not ready to wheel. Front and rear axles are together. The exhaust is done. I need to fix some oil leaks and do a water pump. Ideally, I would do suspension and tires, but I don't think that's going to be in the budget before fall crawl. But maybe. Yeah, and to Steven, if for some reason you should beat me to the shop, just tell Crash you're there for a look over, and he'll get it pulled in and racked up on the middle lift for me. I'll shoot him a text, so he knows you're headed that way. For the crank bolt on an 80 series, it's a Precision Instruments 3/4 drive. That I picked up off Amazon. I think it goes to 600 or 650 foot-pounds. I love the thing, and it makes torquing that very easy. I would not turn the rotors on an 80. They're easy enough to warp stock. When you turn them, they just get even thinner. If you're going to go through the trouble of doing anything with the rotors, just get new rotors. They're so cheap that it's not worth turning them. You're likely not going to have, a good outcome from it. Yeah, and other than that, it's unbolt the old stuff and then rebolt in the new stuff. 1FZ won't start after throttle body cleaning. I would check to make sure, like, the accordion boot that goes between the throttle body and the mass airflow sensor, make sure that didn't crack. As they get older, they get brittle, and when they crack, it'll keep you from starting and it'll stall. And there's the link to the 3/4 inch drive torque wrench I use. I think there's also a link on our website on the engine videos page. And if you order stuff through the links on otram.com, we get a little bit of a kickback from Amazon, which is nice. If it's a new inlet hose, make sure that the mass airflow sensor is plugged in and plugged in all the way. I've screwed that one up before. If you don't get the mass airflow sensor plug all the way snapped in, sometimes they won't start. And depending on how much throttle body cleaner you used, you possibly could have flooded it. But I guess if you changed the oil, or not changed the oil, changed the spark plugs and wires since then, I would doubt that. I don't know. I mean, does it have a check engine light? Awesome. Glad the videos are helping. I keep seeing that Tool album pop up all over my Facebook and Instagram. Everybody seems to be digging it. I never got into Tool. Yeah, I've got like 4 videos shot that I just need to get the time to edit. I did 40 series transmission and transfer case rebuild. I just haven't had any spare time to actually sit down and edit the videos. But one of these days we'll have actual new how-to videos uploaded and not just Tuesday chat. I would check and see what codes you've got. Because while it may be a perpetual light, it may have logged something new in regards to the no start. I would start there. Otherwise just work back through everything and make sure everything's plugged back in. I guess you could also check the actual throttle cables if you messed with them at all. If you've got any of them set too tight, you could be pulling the I'm going brain dead. You could be pulling the throttle open a bit and messing with the throttle position sensor, and it thinks that you're on the gas and not at idle and won't start it. But that's all I can really think of. For removing the snapped lug nut, I'm not sure who makes it. I think it's like Lock Technologies. They make a thing called the stud ripper, or lug ripper rather. And it's like a rotobroach that centers up on lug nuts and basically bores the rest of the lug nut off, but leaves the stud in the middle. That's the only thing I can think of. And to Timothy, if you've, heat shielded and wrapped up the EGR, or the wiring harness runs past the EGR, that's about it. That's the main trouble spot on the wiring harness. I've seen where the lower harness, after it goes through the intake, but goes back along the firewall and under the trans, I've seen them chafe through there, but I've only seen it once. It was a trans that had really weird intermittent shifting issues, and it turned out that the harness had chafed through down there. But like I said, I've only seen that once. What's going on, Dave? How's life down in Nashville treating you? Oh, and Dave reminds me, if anybody knows anybody looking for a entry-level auto shop gig, we're hiring for a new tech. Mostly looking for somebody, new to the trade, that's wanting to learn, so that we can, train them to the way, we do things. But, if anybody out there knows anybody that's looking, we're hiring. I need to get some more help in to get our backlog down. I am 99% sure that you can't get the valve cover off without pulling the throttle body. It hangs over it just enough that you're not going to be able to get it up over the rocker shafts. Or not the rocker shafts, cam towers. You don't really need to drain the coolant completely. There's two little heater hoses that go to the bottom of the throttle body. You can just disconnect those. You'll lose a little bit of coolant, but they're so high up you won't lose much. And then just top it off, back when you're done. And I normally don't disconnect all the throttle cables. I just unbolt the 4 bolts in the throttle body, pull the 2 heater hoses off, and then slap the whole throttle body with cables over into the passenger side by the air filter. And I do not know about Toyota discontinuing the Cruiser in the U.S. I keep seeing rumors about it going back and forth. But I don't have any real news on it. And to Dave, look up Tim Guthrie. I'm almost positive that's his name. He's got a cruiser shop somewhere near Nashville. He's one of the Southern Toyota Land Cruiser Association guys. He's been working on cruisers for eons. And I'm pretty sure he's somewhere near Nashville. So I'd try to find him. Otherwise, check with STLCA and see if they've got anybody they recommend. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've tried to get the valve cover out without doing the throttle body, and I'm pretty sure it didn't end well. If they had just made that a little bit shorter, you could get it off of there. G-Smitter is good times. I haven't been in 11 years. But I went, I think, for 9 years straight, starting in 99. And it was always a good time. I haven't been to it since it's at the new park. I always went when it was at Teleco. If you left your wheel bearings too tight, eventually they will cease being wheel bearings, and will just be metal shavings. Too tight on bearings is not a good thing. They'll get hot and burn the grease, and then burn the bearings. You know, if you've got them super too tight. You know, I don't know that, I don't know if I've ever pulled the cowl off of an 80. I think it's just the Phillips screws that are under the hood line. But I'm not sure. You know, I think it's just popped the wiper blade, or not the wiper blades, wiper arms off, and then those screws. But I can't remember having done it in recent memory. Yeah, I don't know what's up with the spammers and the bad jokes. I reported them for child abuse. So we'll see if they come back. If they're barely too tight, they'll probably just wear in. It's hard to say. Yeah, I try to never disconnect the throttle body cables, because it's so much easier just to leave them like they are and flop it over. If I do have to disconnect them, I undo, one jam nut on all of them, like on the same side of the bracket, so that I know when I put them back, I'm putting them back to the same lineup. But yeah, there's plenty of room to flop them to the side. Did chat drop off on your end, Whirly? Because I'm watching it in like the preview window, and it hasn't dropped here, but I've seen it stutter a couple of times, which is weird because it must be stuttering on YouTube's end, because I've got it open on my laptop too, watching the camera view in real time, and it's working okay over there. I'm partial to the Terrain Tamer kits. Although lately when I've ordered from Cruiser Brothers, I haven't gotten Terrain Tamer kits. They've sent out Fuji, which the Fujis are fine as well. It's all Japanese bearings, Japanese seals, and all that good stuff. Either Cruiser Brothers or Cruiser Outfitters, you can't go wrong with the kits they sell. I would not get the cheaper kits. And I mean, some of them are the same price, but like the Trail Gear kits, the last time I saw one of those, they had Chinese knuckle bearings in them, which were junk. So I always either get them from Cruiser Brothers or Cruiser Outfitters, because you're getting good quality Japanese stuff. Oh, if you're not getting all the questions, I ran into this once. If you go up to the top of the chat window, it'll have a little drop down that says either live chat or top chat. Make sure you've got it set to live chat. Otherwise, it doesn't kick all the comments in, and I don't know why they have the option to not get all the comments. I haven't looked at cost lately from Cruiser Brothers. I think the non-wheel bearing kit is like $130-ish, and the with wheel bearing kit is around $200, like Zach's saying. And more, Tego, I'm not sure what you're asking. I would just fix what's broken. I wouldn't go in, just replacing all kinds of stuff. The upper oil pan, make sure you got the bolts that are on the inside of the pan off. There's 3 or maybe 4 inside the pan rail, like up inside the pan on the passenger side of the block, I believe. There's all the perimeter bolts, and I think there's 3 or 4 inside the pan that can be kind of hard to see. And if you don't have those, it'll be real hard to get the pan off. They can be really stuck on there. And it's also going to be, if you've still got the engine in the truck, terrible to get the pan out. I want to say the last time I did it in the truck, I had to lift the engine up some to get the pan to come around the oil pickup and past the that frame cross member that runs under for the panhard bar. But before you go, hammering, prying, chiseling, make absolutely sure that you've got all the bolts out so you don't crack the pan. I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I would be tempted to throw the axles in the truck and see how they do. It's not going to be that much work to go. It's not going to be that much difference in work, to fix issues once the axles are in the truck, as opposed to when they're out of the truck. Other than that, it's going to take your truck out of commission for a while to repair. I would be tempted just to see how they do, and then fix what needs fixing, if anything needs fixing. And hey, T25, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you later. And no, lift doesn't matter for getting the pan off. There's a welded-in, panhard brace that goes side to side on the frame that hangs it up. And so the motor to that crossmember relation doesn't change. And I'm not 100% sure you have to lift the engine up to get it out, but the one I was doing in the driveway, I couldn't figure out any way to wiggle that pan out without lifting up the engine. And I want to say I only had to pick the engine up like an inch or so. What are you chasing, taking the pan off? Because I don't think I've ever seen a leak that was actually the upper pan. It was always somewhere else dripping down and looking like the upper pan. For differential oil, we just use, house brand 80/90 for most everything. Some of the newer stuff, like transfer cases and such, take 75/90, so we usually run that in synthetic because it's easier to come by that way. But usually, just 80/90, conventional gear oil, we buy it in the 5-gallon bucket. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, upper pan has to come off to do the timing chain, or to get the front cover off. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have any good suggestions for you other than triple check to make sure all the bolts are out to get the pan loose, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have to pick the motor up some. For the knuckles, I usually use, it's Valvoline brand, and it says Ford Lincoln Mercury on I get it in the 1 pound tubs. It says Valvoline, Ford Lincoln Mercury, and it says Moly Fortified. That seems to work well. I really like Liqui-Moly Langzeit Fett. It's their German Moly grease. I had a buddy that was a distributor for them for a while and was using it, and it was super awesome grease, but he's no longer distributing for them, and I don't have a hookup for it anymore. Trying to think. But yeah, pretty much anything high moly. So you want it to be black or really dark gray. As long as it's rated for CVs, you should be good. The Valvoline Ford Lincoln Mercury is just the easiest to come by here because all the parts stores stock it in a pound tub. And I'll buy it. I like to buy it in the 5-gallon bucket, but nobody's had it on sale cheap enough to make it justifiable lately. But when the 5-gallon buckets come up for 70 or so bucks, I buy those. Because we go through a lot of CV grease. Lubra-Moly is a different company. I'm pretty sure Lubra-Moly is a US-based grease company. Liqui-Moly is German. But yeah, I've seen Lubra-Moly, and it's a different company. And they're still around. I've got some of their anti-Cs. But yeah, I think Lubra-Moly is more grease-based, and Liqui-Moly got their start doing motor oil that was Moly fortified. They've got an actual, I think it's 1040, a 1040 motor oil that's called Liqui-Moly. That's got Moly in it, that works awesome in the older 2Fs. But again, I don't have access to it. They've also got a GL4 Plus transmission fluid that is super awesome in the 80s Toyota transmissions that want GL4. But all you can find now is GL5, and they don't shift right when they're cold. with Liqui Moly's GL4 Plus, they shift like butter in the cold. I've still got a stash of that because I bought a couple of 20-liter containers of it back when my buddy had it. Their brake clean is also really awesome. Yeah, they're Jectron, and they've got another one that's carb something, and I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, if you can me for, which sucks. One of our big wholesale accounts just started carrying it, so I need to look through their catalog and see what all they're stocking. Before Bino retired, he got me a can of the actual Toyota Japanese knuckle grease, like what they use at the factory, and that was like the nicest knuckle grease I've ever used. But I don't think anybody sells it in the U.S. It was like some random order he'd bought and passed it along. Yeah, it's crazy the stuff that Liqui Moly sells. Like there's a ton of it that my buddy had in catalogs that I had never seen in any of the local stores. Like I haven't seen anybody selling the GL4 Plus trans fluid. Locally, but he got it for me. That stuff is awesome. And no problem, Timothy. Glad you're digging the channel. Like I was saying earlier, I need to actually get some more how-to videos up. Just haven't had time to edit lately. And I haven't had much that was cool to film. It depends on which Liqui Moly it is. The stuff we were using was Langzite fat. I think that's spelled correctly. I think it just means long time fat. And I can't remember the model number. It's like LM41 or something like that. Let me see if I can find it in our inventory. Looks like it was maybe LM47. And Dave, I don't have a good answer for you. I don't think there is a polite way to broach that subject. Uh, but I have a feeling they will figure it out soon enough. That seems to be what happens to everybody that buys a South American cruiser. Oh, I should do that for a how-to video. And I am not seeing the Liqui-Moly grease that we were using on Amazon, so I'm not sure which one you're pulling up. Really? Sorry, I had to go talk the dogs into coming back in. The link I just threw up is the Ford Lincoln Mercury that we usually use. Yeah, I can't wait for the turbo build. I heard from that customer late last week, and I think he's dropping off. He's dropping the truck and the new block off either early next week or the following week. And he sent me the instructions from Joey for the turbo install. And I think he's up close on the actual list of turbos coming out. So it should be soon that I get to start playing with that, which will be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I've driven, a bunch of supercharged 80s. It'll be fun to drive a turbo 80 and see how it compares. And I want to say the Ford Lincoln Mercury grease is cheaper at our local parts store. I want to say I only pay like $5 or $6 a 16-ounce tub for it locally. I could be wrong. Ooh, but the 5-gallon price on that isn't hateful. I'm going to put that on my list for my next order. The last time I asked about the 5-gallon bucket locally, they told me like $180 for it. And hopefully you guys are still there and my chat just froze. Oh, there it goes. I'm not hooking up with Joey on the turbo. I've got a customer that was one of the early backers. So he's pretty high up on the list, like, of people that are already prepaid to get one. I'm just doing the install for it. I have been trying to get our 80 series stainless exhaust squared away before the main release for the turbos, just because people are probably going to be looking for higher flowing exhaust once they go turbo. So I redid the design on ours to make it a little bit cleaner routing and a little bit easier to build. So if I have to keep hand making them, they're faster for me to make, and it actually makes them worth my time to build. But the ultimate goal is to have the main sections of a mandrel bent out of one piece, to make it easier on me, which I need to go up. I found a shop in Maryland that will digitize the prototypes I've got, and I was going to run up there today, but their digitizer was broken, so I'm hoping to run up there later this week and get all that scanned in before it's all out on sale. But yeah, no direct hooking up with Wit's End. Just I'm installing it for one of our customers and planning to shoot video on it while we do it. I had looked. We had one of our local customers was interested in turbocharging his 80, and I got as far as drawing up the exhaust manifold flange and everything in AutoCAD to get them water jet cut, and I had started ordering parts to build like a tubular turbo manifold, and then I heard that Joey was doing the turbo kit, and it's like, man, Joey makes such awesome things. I'm just gonna wait for Joey's kit to come out. There's no reason for me to reinvent the wheel. I doubt there is an actual PSI that goes with the divisions on the gauge. It is not accurate at all. It basically tells you if you have pressure or you don't have pressure. It's not in any way, shape, or form precision. So yeah, I doubt there's any numerical data associated with it, because we've seen a lot of trucks, like if we hook a mechanical gauge to them, they will all read the same, but the actual gauge on the dash doesn't. I've been getting the V-bands and all the mandrel bends and stuff from silicone intakes. they seem to have decent pricing, and good quality, and super fast shipping. If you go to silicone intakes and you scroll all the way down the left side of the page, you'll see exhaust parts listed, and they're in there. I just ordered a ton of them 2 weeks ago for all the 62 exhausts I built last week. It depends on the truck, and it depends on the RPM. It depends on the age. Usually at idle, 10 to 15 psi. And then, 2,500, 3,000 RPM. 65, 70, somewhere in there. And is an 80 series worth restoration? It just depends on, it depends on how much money you want to throw at it. I doubt you would actually get your money back out of restoring an 80. But, if it's a truck you really, really love, it might be worth it. The 80 series is 1/8 inch British pipe thread, so it's 1/8 inch BSP. And Joey from Wits End just brought out, with the turbos, an adapter that threads in there so that you can put a manual gauge and your factory gauge into the same port. And I think he's also using it as a feed line for the turbo. For the 80 series, I'm a fan of the Harrops or Harrop. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Harrop. They're the Australian e-lockers. They're a fairly easy install, no airlines to mess with, and they seem pretty bulletproof. It used to be the mainstay was the ARB air lockers. But I've just seen more and more of them with leaking O-rings lately. And with the E-Locker, you don't have to worry about the O-ring maintenance or ripping off an airline, on branches and stuff. Where, if you rip an electrical line, or an electrical wire, go into the E-Locker, it's much easier to patch, a wire in the field than it is an air hose. So, yeah, I'm a fan of those. That's what's going to go in the front of my truck. I bought what I thought was a triple locked 80 series. and couldn't get either locker to engage. Took it apart, rebuilt the rear one, and got it working. Couldn't get the front one to work. And then had it up on the lift and realized that somebody took the whole front locker axle housing out of it and replaced it with a non-locked housing. So rather than trying to find another e-locker front, I'm just going to put, or a factory locked front, I'm just going to put a hair-up e-locker in it, somewhere down the road. And no problem. And I'm trying to think of any special tools for the 80 locking axle swap. You'll likely want, a pretty decent sized breaker bar to, loosen up the radius arm bolts. And I think the front radius arm bolts are 22 millimeter socket and the rears are 24. But that's the only thing I can think that you might want. And I can never remember which way it goes. But if you're trying to break the radius arm bolts loose, I'm pretty sure it's the bolts that spin and the nuts have teeth. But I could be wrong. And I've never looked up an OEM crank sensor for a 1FZ. And I kind of can't believe that I've never had to look that up. And awesome. It is nice to be loved. In a good way. I wish I was getting ready for a full suspension lift. The Shady 80 is so depressing looking, sitting on stock, 20 some odd year old sagged out suspension. It needs a lift. Awesome. Glad the videos are helpful. When I first started making them, I was like, I don't know if people are really gonna dig these, because I'm not that great at videoing, but people seem to enjoy them. So I'm glad they're helpful. Oh, and I apparently let mosquitoes in when I let the dogs back in. I would go Old Man Emu. I don't have any first-hand experience with Dobinson. I know people like them. We did one of their rear bumpers, and it was just terrible. So I don't know, I have a bad taste in my mouth from that rear bumper to wondering if their suspension is the same quality. But people seem to like them, so I don't know. But we've done a ton of Old Man Emu, and, they've always worked out well. And Money No Object, I would probably go Slinky, like the full Slinky with all the bells and whistles. Well, I guess I take that back. I would go Slinky Springs, Icon Shocks, and Trail Tailor control arms. And Delta's front radius arms. So I guess that doesn't super narrow it down to one brand. But I think that's like the best combo running right now. Sweet, yeah. I am working on getting the 80 series exhaust into a production-ready state. We've been doing them for a couple of years, but the original design took me so long to make that it really wasn't worth it to build them. They took me longer than what we could charge for. So hopefully with the redesign, we've got that squared away. Oh, and that's crazy that you had pieces bouncing inside the knuckle. That's never a good idea. And hey, Logan, how's it going? Ballpark for that lift. You're probably 700 or 800 for Trail Taylor's rear control arm set. I think it's 800 for the Delta arms. I think the springs and shocks are 2,500-ish. So not cheap. Probably 4,500, $5,000. I'm still looking for noise in the front end. Seems to do it when I turn, hit bumps. I would check sway bar bushings first off. Sway bar bushings and shock bushings. And beyond that, wheel bearings or knuckle bearings. And I guess it could also be radius arm bushings, but I haven't ever seen those make noise before. And for lowering an 80, I've never actually had anybody ask me about lowering an 80, but I would assume you would just find lower coil springs for it. And to Timothy, lift components that I would use would be the slinky springs and the Icon shocks that go with them, Trail Taylor's upper and lower rear control arms, and Delta VS their radius arms. And I like steel braided lines for the better pedal feel. I have clamped them, and pretty much anytime you clamp a brake line, you have to replace it afterwards, rubber or stainless braided. Because either way, when you clamp them, you're kinking the hose. So I would try to avoid clamping them if at all possible. But I prefer stainless, just for better pedal feel and longevity. If it's got all new shocks and bushings, double check that you've got the shock nuts run all the way down tight. But other than that, my gut feeling would be sway bar bushings. Oh yeah, I always forget about the Delta bracket. Yeah, the Delta bracket is supposed to be awesome. I haven't used one yet, but it should be a nicer solution than using the adjustable panhards because it puts the panhard back in the proper plane. So yes, I didn't think about that, but yeah, Delta's rear bracket would also be on my list. Are you sure the wheel bearings are adjusted properly? Because if they're too loose, they can clunk. Same with the knuckle bearings. That's a good question. How to install a center lock for an FJ80. I don't know of any aftermarket. I mean, I know they make spools for them. Trying to think. I don't think there's anything you can put in there, but the factory. So you can get like the center diff lock switch that lets you like manually lock the center diff instead of having it go in low range first. Yeah, I'd lift it up and do the shake, and sometimes it also helps if you lift a tire like, 1.5 2 inches just off the ground and stick a pry bar under it, and lift up and down and shake on the pry bar. Sometimes you can feel stuff that you can't feel just shaking the wheel. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Dave. I'm thinking just CDL switch. But there may be other options the rest of the world got that we didn't, that didn't have the center locking diff. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm going to jump off of here for the evening so I can get the dogs fed. And to Timothy, I would go with Joey from Wits End's new brake lines. He just released some stainless lines, and they look super awesome. So he would be my first choice. I just got a set of metal techs for my truck, and they're nice. Pretty much anybody that makes 80 series stainless lines, they're going to be nice. You know what? I've done the 7-pin mod, but I haven't done it in eons, and I don't remember exactly why you did it. And awesome, yeah. But anyway, I'm going to jump off here so I can get the dogs dinner and get our dinner started cooking. But thanks to everybody for tuning in this week. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe below. And if you really dig the videos and dig chat, check our Patreon link down in the description. The support is always appreciated. But yeah, I will catch you guys next week. Same time, same place. Thanks again for tuning in.